Greetings again, it is T. Lee Logic Jones, back with a new video on a different approach to my work. I've been laying down a lot of stuff in the videos and in my books. I've kind of put off doing the moon hoax stuff because, well, it obviously places somebody on the lunatic fringe, even if your work implies such a thing, to actually come out and say it. But this stuff really has to be come to terms with, because as we're going to see, if I can get it to play, it's phony, and we'll go through why that's the case. I mean, I'm starting off by saying that the first approach we're going to have, looking at it, that we'll do some more technical analysis of these videos in terms of projectiles and velocities and gravity and such. We want to just initially look at it and say, intuitively, what does it look like to us? Well, it looks really just slightly slow. It seems to be somewhat in slow motion because it's lumbering. And it seems to be, everything else about it intuitively doesn't have any sense of being anything other than a dune buggy in a gravel pit somewhere on Earth. And we'll look into more details about what should be expected in the 1/6 gravity that we're told that the Earth has. But we're more looking at, just intuitively looking at this thing moving around and wondering how, does it fit the environment that it's supposed to be occurring in? There's two elements of change on the moon. There's two variables between the moon and the Earth that we want to consider that are really the only two variables between Earth and moon that are relevant to this study here. So of the two differences, the principal one is, the first one, not the principal one, the first one that we mention here is atmosphere. So if this vehicle is driving around on the surface of the moon, we should expect that there should be no presence of atmosphere in any part of the physical and material activities we see. And the principal one is obviously the moving of the buggy, but a secondary action that's of great interest to us is these rooster tails coming off the back of the thing. And we want to ask ourselves, do they indicate atmosphere or do they not indicate atmosphere? If it's on the moon and there is no atmosphere, there can be no indication of atmosphere in the throwing of the gravel and dust from the back end of the car. The other principal difference, or the other variable, is that of gravity, or that of the force that holds the Earth together, and presumably, by the theory, it's the same force that holds the moon together by the same principle of attraction. So if we're on the surface of the moon here, or if that's what our video is driving slowly. See the difference in the speed? Like, it's slowed down to make it look like, to kind of fool the eye into thinking, oh wow, we're in a different environment, because there is something, not hugely, but there is something slightly uncanny about this movement. We just say, oh, it's a slow motion shot. We're used to seeing them, so we know in movies when something moves into slow motion, or fast motion for that matter, we know intuitively we understand what natural movements look like. Anyway, that's enough for, sorry. I apologize. This beginning part was an infill. My audio dropped out in the original recording, so I lost that, and then had to try to, see myself in with the beginning of the next clip, and it's as good as it is. Just understand it's a bit bumpy. The subject continues on now. Thanks. In a little bit, we'll get into a little bit of math down the road, but we're going to first just look at this thing intuitionally, and have a a study of it such as we can, with it being latent and causing me grief. Now, the atmosphere itself is not going to be, the cause of the changes in terms of the speed of the falling of objects. In fact, it would speed things up theoretically, but even on Earth, the atmosphere does not have a strong effect, except for very, very, very long falls or great distances. But just in our normal everyday life, within the atmosphere, when we drop things, the air molecules aren't really slowing it down much. But certain events, certain accelerated events, will be affected by the air molecules, and that should be expected. And what should not be expected on the surface of the moon is that there should be any resistance whatsoever. Certainly not anything close to matching the Earth's, and it would actually be imperceptible. So we shouldn't expect, when we see the buggy tooling about, we shouldn't expect to see any sense that the gravel is in any way airborne. And it should just be, as pure a parabolic projections as you could imagine, without any slowing or without any kind of sagging or hanging for the finer particles. The heavy particles would not be so much affected, but dust is affected by air, whereas gravel is less affected by air. So there are those two changes then. One is the atmosphere. So we need to see whether or not there is any. I hope my viewer is looking carefully at this repetition to just become habituated to it. That's sort of the goal here. Yeah, just to think about that. Think about what you're watching. I'm not even going to comment on it. That little run right there is very enlightening in terms of the state of the environment of this vehicle in its environment. Where is that environment? Well, it has very clear indications of what kind of environment it's in. So supposedly it doesn't have any atmosphere, functionally zero atmosphere, and secondly, it's supposed to have a gravity that is 1/6 of that of the Earth's. And what that means is that all objects relating to the moon, on the moon, if those are the true conditions, will fall at a rate of 1/6 of that of on Earth. And we'll have a look at what that means mathematically again in just a minute. But 1/6 gravity, as we'll see by the arcs in the discussion, in the mathematical look, an environment with 1/6 gravity is not a small change. Not at all a small change. That is a huge, huge difference. And we see this thing here lumbering along. I mean, does it weigh 6 times as much as a normal vehicle? Can't imagine them getting it up to the moon if it did. It's hugging the Earth just like anything hugs the Earth. There is no indication, other than this is slightly slowed down, that this seems different than just a vehicle on Earth. And we can show mathematically why that is actually the case. This is just phony business. Let's see here, we can speed it up. So this is now playing back at 1.25. Maybe 1.5 would be better. Some people say that it's double, and I saw it once done doubled, and it seemed to actually, 1.5. We'll try that. And see, that does seem a little fast to me. Not that much too fast. This seems too fast, but that's a different story. Yeah, I think the 2.5. Some people have said double. That would be way too fast. Way, way, way too fast. And here we are. Yeah, no, that's not natural. I think the rooster tails would be much larger if it was actually moving that fast. Well, it's not far off anyway. Well, to make a comparison, let's actually look at some footage here I found of some dune buggies running through the sand, and that gives us an opportunity to compare a similar event on Earth versus the event that's supposedly on the moon, and continue this intuitional comparison. It's almost criminal getting a free helicopter shot in your movie. So this is, dune buggies were they were almost a mythical creature, a mythical machine back in those days. Just the fact that you could just make a vehicle to go out on the sand like this and just go with these big round tires. And the problem with this video compared to what we've been doing is that the movement of the gravel here is going to be more extreme, because these dune buggies are really going. Boy, I'm getting a lot of free eye candy here. Let's see if I may feel too guilty. Oh, yeah. That's too extreme. We didn't have anything like that. Sure, maybe it looks the same, but actually what you do see is a certain aspect of this stuff, although they're not. See how it is resisting the air, or the air is resisting it? It's kind of heavy, so the air doesn't resist it that much, but it does a little bit. You can see that the stuff spitting out creates these waves right there. Let's back that one up and have a look at that again. You can see this wave pattern forming. There a little less clearly, but on this one we're going to see it quite clearly. You can see it already if you're looking at the sides there. Oh no, that one showed it too, but this is the one. Yeah, here we go. You can see it better when it's moving than when it's still. See this, watch and hear this throwing of this pattern. And why is it throwing that pattern? Well, it's throwing that pattern for one reason, and that's because, we're back here again. We'll have to go through it all. It's too hard to... Oh, yeah, here we go. So see, you can see that wave resistance, and that's the air. It's bumping up against the air, and then as more particles slow down, the ones behind bounce into the other ones. And it happens the sand isn't completely evenly thrown from the back of the vehicle, so it's creating waves in that way too. But this resistance wave is due entirely to atmosphere. Yeah, you get the idea of what just natural coming and going of sand is. This is rad. This is the kind of stuff we used to do back in the day. I don't know if people do that stuff anymore. They'd be counting the costs before they do it. And look at this. I've done stuff like this. I don't know if this is still normal behavior, but I remember doing something just like this. Maybe I did it sideways. That guy's fit, being able to... It's just nuts. So yeah, you get an idea of the nature of gravel moving. It's not we're just talking about intuition, but often that's the start of these things. We can feel a sense of how things look. And there's actually nothing about the movement of the lunar vehicle. Yeah, this movie is hilarious. I advise anybody to find this, and if somebody likes to do restorations, I'm sure it's public domain at this point, and this thing could definitely use a restoration. See, you think hipsters are new? No, they were made in California in 1972. I think this was made in maybe 68. So that's a little extreme example. Oh yeah, and I just want to have. Oh yeah, yeah. This is the California I grew up in. It's I was a child at the time, but so these are boomers. But yeah, welcome to the Pleasure Dome. Oh, here we go. This is a good comparison. So let's pause this real quick. So we just want to look at the difference. I mean, this is obviously, again, very extreme, but it only gets so high. It doesn't get very high, and that's due to factors. It would actually go quite high anyway. That's boring. What we have here, though, is just comparing this event here, the way this stuff goes, even at that greater speed, compared to what's happening here with the moon buggy, with these things. There's nothing about what's happening on the moon, even with the variable effects and motions. There's nothing that's happening on the moon that says, ooh, that's eerie. That looks different. That looks 6 times different than what's happening over here. Other than there's something seems to be wrong with the speed, but that's the speed of everything. You have to remember, it would take, on the moon, with any of these things throwing like this, it would go 6 times as far, 6 times as high. It would spread out 6 times on the moon. Whereas here, it's just simply doing exactly the same thing as you'd expect on Earth. Now, again, I'm saying this is only an intuitional approach at this point. I don't want to bring the math in yet, because some people turn off math, but they're better at just intuition. So if you're good at intuition, think about these movements. What's going on here? Is there anything 1/6 about this? Or, because remember, 1/6 means actually a multiplication of event, not a diminishing of event. 6 times would tighten up the arcs. It would make everything land quicker. It would make everything heavier. So oddly, there's this inverse relationship such that when you have less gravity, you have more event spread, as it were. And you're not seeing any increased event spread here by intuition. I'm not seeing anything go 6 times of anything that I would have seen of events. All right, there we go again. Of events over here. These events are comparable to these events, and there's just no variation. This thing is a buggy on Earth. By intuition, this thing. Well, this we know is a buggy on Earth, even though it's doing way cooler stuff. That looks like it's on the moon. Look what it's doing. It's flying through the air. No. This is just, there's nothing about this that says I'm in a special environment. And in fact, let's without any numbers involved, let's have a look here real quick. The air resistance waves, you can see them here. They're constant. Further back. Let's start back here. So watch them. Even this is happening like an air thing here. And this is clearly an air thing. And when we watch it come back around, it's even more of an air thing. You can see here we come. If this doesn't go even if it you can start to see them. There you go. Well, here's another one of these infills from my sound dropouts. That's enough of the discussion of the intuitional comparison between, a look at this supposed event on the moon, and also its comparison with the dune buggies that we saw going around Pismo Beach or something there in California, maybe further north. And we want to now move on to looking at some of the more technical aspects of this work, and we will start by panning out and looking at the Earth in the next section. But there's a little wrap-up portion here where coming back to this idea of truth being a plenum. If indeed this over here is a record, we know this is a record of Earth. Nobody's questioning anything that's happening here. Here we're told this is a record on the moon. An audio-visual record on the moon would have certain things about it that were necessarily true, because they would be things that would be manifest in that environment. And if things are not manifest in this record, such as we should expect, then this can't be a record of being on the moon. And I'll leave it for the rest of the video to finish this out. Yeah, it just doesn't reflect the wholeness of the event, that which you should expect, the plenum of an event like that. You would expect certain kinds of things to happen, versus what is it? Well, it's a presentation of a thing that was supposed to have happened, and that will also give indications within its truth, because there is something. When we're watching the video, it's a record of something. And so it's telling the truth of the environment that it's in. And as we've given indication intuitionally, it just seems to be Earth. There's nothing about it it's not like, whoa, where's this? No, it's just looks like Earth, a little slower. Something to do with the speed. But it's not in any way indicative of being in an environment as we've described on the moon, that should be on the moon, which is an environment without atmosphere, and an environment where things fall 6 times slower than they do on Earth. And we will soon be getting into what that means, but in the next video we're going to be zooming in on planet Earth. Ba 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 ba. We're going to be zooming in here, because this is and we'll do it more detail next time. We're going to be zooming in on planet Earth in a geocentric model, wherein this is the Earth and this is the Sun, and the planets orbit the Sun out and out and out and out and out, all the way out. And then that all in turn orbits the Earth, and this is the model of both Tycho Brahe, or Bra, I think I've heard it pronounced both ways, and also of Saint Hildegard von Bingen. She had a vision that the planets orbited the Sun and the Sun orbited the Earth. Went around, or I don't think she didn't use the term orbit in a kind of scientific way. But that's remarkable, because that's 300 years plus before Copernicus made his discovery. So it was already given in revelation before it was discovered in science. And yet the revelation wasn't given full credence. I can say I understand in a way why. That is a very abstruse document. I won't be quoting much of it here. I've quoted it a bit in my book, but it is a very poetic view or description, but it does make certain more or less concrete claims. And so then we get into planet Earth, I mean, the scale, this is scaled properly to scale in terms of, I mean, it's scaled in kilometers, so it wouldn't make any difference whether it was scaled in whatever. And we get in here, and now this is now the lunar orbit around the Earth, and this is the size of the Earth compared to the moon, and this is the size of the moon compared to the Earth. And that's what we'll begin with next time. Thanks for listening, if you've listened this far. I understand this is strange stuff, especially for some people but I think most people by now have at least done some inquiry into this. We're just not entirely convinced yet that we can make a hard claim about it, and I'm hoping to solidify that here. Thanks.